right there.
Yep, that's good. Welcome to How to Pant.
Right.
Hi, this is Real Men Feel. I am your host, Andy Grant. We are a weekly program live at 5 o'clock on Blab each and every week. This is a space to allow and encourage men to feel, to allow for their emotions, to express them, to feel them. You don't have to be a man to be part of the show by any means, but we do have a man joining us as a guest this week. And we always have a man riding co-host with me, my friend and fellow coach, Appio Hunter.
Hey, Andy.
How are you doing today?
Fantastic.
Good. And today we have we always have unique guests, but I feel like we have an especially unique guest today, Luc Watelet, because Luc is a psychotherapist and yoga teacher. And that seems like a strange combination to me, but maybe I'm just not in the loop enough of psychotherapists and yoga teachers to know that they often combine and meet. So how are you doing today, Luc?
Very well. It's fun to be able to talk about what I love.
Awesome. So, and we wanted to talk about kind of allowing life to guide you today. So
yes.
Why don't you share how you were guided to end up as a psychotherapist, perhaps?
Yes, exactly. I think that's a great segue into allowing life to guide you. When I was 15 or 16, I started to read some Freud and some Jung. And I was very interested in Jung. I loved the ideas. It expanded my horizon on human spirit and my perceptions of it. And when I read Freud, it actually contracted my impression of what human life was about. I read in particular his book about interpretations of dreams. And each interpretation that I read from him sounded like I could have come up with another one, and I didn't see why mine would have been worse than his. So I felt I could argue with him. I understand what he was saying, and Jung had the opposite effect. So I felt like I belonged to that world. And a year or so later, when someone I had met, I was a busboy in a restaurant, and he was a waiter, and we worked together. And he asked me, "Luc, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And without thinking about it, I just said, "I want to be a psychotherapist." And I hadn't thought about it. It's not like I had an idea before he asked me that question. And so it was a discovery. And so I talked about it with my dad. And being a historian and having done some psychoanalysis himself, he said, "Well, why don't you do medicine and study psychiatry? Then you'll know about the body and the mind, and it'll be a good combination." And so I said, "Why not?" So I entered in pre-med, and then after 2 years, I realized, no, medicine is not my bag. I just couldn't see myself studying medicine. So then I started to take some classes in psychology, thinking that I would go into it that way. But I was bored to tears. To be honest, I got A+ in each class, but I didn't feel it. And in those days, I couldn't have told you why. And for some odd reason, instead of going to see an advisor and asking, "Okay, this is my situation. I love Jung. I'm not feeling it in my classes. What do I do?" I didn't do that. Instead, I gave up on the idea of being a psychotherapist, and I went into mathematics. It was also a love of mine, and mathematics led me to do what's called biostatistics, which is statistics applied to medical research. So you can do that in academia, helping medical doctors do their research, or you can do that doing research in the field of biostatistics, improving the field, or you can be hired by a pharmaceutical company. And I did a little bit of all of that. But my heart never felt that I belonged there.
Luc, was it the same sort of feeling in class, not connecting, to when you're actually working it, or was it somehow different? How do you identify not feeling it?
Okay. So when I was doing biostatistics, it was like if you do something you like maybe you like doing a crossword puzzle, but would you do that for the rest of your life and make a living at it? Right? So I felt that kind of thing in biostatistics. I could do it. I had fun doing it, but doing it every day and contributing to the field, that felt overwhelming. And I thought there's something missing. I need to figure out who I really want to be. And so I didn't know how. I mean, I was still reading books in psychology. I had my favorite authors, but I did not know how to get there. And so I just continued in biostatistics, but I kept fighting inside of me. Why am I here? What am I doing? In the course of that, I had some really peak spiritual experiences. One was a dream that basically told me that I would do something else after biostatistics, but it didn't tell me how I would get there. And another one was a vision. And I was awake during that time. I was finishing my dissertation, and somehow my mind went into this space where I saw myself entering a cathedral, which was filled with people. And the only spot available for me was at the pulpit in front. And so when I stood there, I knew I needed to speak to these people, but I didn't know how to start. I didn't have any spiritual things to say. And that was in at the end of the 1980s. So it took me 30 some years to figure it out. But eventually life brought me to do yoga and I had sworn I would never do yoga. But a friend of mine who had back problems said, "Hey, Luke, there's a class for people with back problems. Would you come and support me by doing it, taking it with me?" And that's the only way I would have done any yoga classes. It's by helping a friend. And I'm the one who continued in yoga, and she stopped. And not only that, but I started studying several styles, and I didn't know anything. I realized I had much to learn. And there's one in particular that my heart felt particularly attracted to it. It's called Kundalini Yoga. I felt blissful at the end of classes, and I became a teacher in that. But Kundalini Yoga is not just yoga. It's also about numerology. It's also about healing. And I started studying healing. And at the end of teaching a yoga class, I would ask my students, "Hey, do you want to stay a little longer? And I'll practice healing work on you." And they all stayed. I had maybe 5 students at that time. They all stayed, and we worked together for another hour after the class was over. And as I did, and the kind of healing that we do in Kundalini Yoga is not by injecting energy, positive energy into the other person. It's by feeling their energy and then resolving the blocks inside of us, inside of me. And so as I start to feel people's energy, I start to feel where the blocks were. And I could either dissolve.
Are you following this, Fabio?
I am. It looks like we do have some technical difficulties at the moment.
All right, yeah. Luke, we've lost you.
Oh, gee.
Let's see. Oh, he's lost them totally.
There he goes. Okay,
All right,
that was actually fantastic. We can actually go on with it. Sarah, I saw your question there. About when Luke was talking about how it felt like it was not a deep enough purpose, not connecting to that deep, instinctive purpose. Definitely feels that way. It looks like Luke is back. Hopefully we'll be able to get it back on. There he is. And all that we can.
But yeah, Sarah asking that question, that's what it seemed like to me, and how I would describe it as well.
Absolutely.
Like you're drawn to something that feels good, and then doesn't feel it, and yeah, you can't. At least I've never been able to put words on it. To say, when are you feeling? Again, even if you say it, like I'm feeling it or I'm not feeling it, it's like
that's the best you can describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I thought I would love this, now I've done it a little bit more, and it doesn't fill you up the way it did at some other point too.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that the analogy of the crosswords puzzles was perfect. It's something that's enjoyable, but you really want to do it for the rest of your life.
But it's very tough. I mean, plenty of things, especially growing up and when people answer that question, what do you want to do when we grew up and when you're taking classes? If I put that onto everything I came across, I'd probably get an answer to no all the time. Like, I like going to the movies. I like eating pizza. Do I want to do it all the time for the rest of my days professionally? Like, no, probably not. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know if Luke can hear us or not, but Luke, if you can actually hear us, sometimes when you're in the room and you're trying to get in, but you can't get in, you can still hear us. Try refreshing your browser. That might knock you out, but just hit the call-in button again. We'll get you back on, and we'll continue the conversation. So in the meantime, let's see here. What do we have to say as far as just reading some of the comments here?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that makes sense, Sarah. So Sarah's question is seeking something that has continued that continues your inner growth, or just growth in meaning to you. It really kind of boils down to one's personal definition of growth and how one feels one's path. That's how I certainly interpret it. There we go. Okay, so Luke, you can actually, he is part of the conversation as far as the comments are concerned. So let's see here really quick. So I guess, yeah, Sarah, would you mind rephrasing that question again? I think I understood it, and I'm kind of responding to it somewhat directly, or as I understood it, but now we've lost Andy as well. And by the way, Fonzie, thank you so much for joining the conversation. So let's see here. So even making pizzas. There we go, Andy. We got you back.
Yeah, I was trying to find. Hey. I can't find a way to accept Luke back.
Oh wow. Okay. Luke, let's do this. We're going to kick you out. Try refreshing your browser, and then calling back in, and we'll get you back into the conversation. Okay. So we'll try it that way. All righty. Hey, every week brings a whole new set of challenges with Blab, doesn't it?
It's a perfect example of allowing life to guide us.
Absolutely, yes. We cannot ask for a better example.
Sometimes takes you into Blab, sometimes takes you out of Blab.
Yep, exactly. So we're just going to keep on rolling with it. Yep. So, Sarah, your comment, even making pizzas could be continual growth if you love the depth of it all, and you keep learning in the pizza-making world.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's why some people really go into it and love having a pizza place, and there are people that are passionate about that, right?
Right. And Fonzie, real men, I understand what you're saying as far as the implication that men needs to earn viability. And again, everything boils down to personal interpretations, and certainly we can appreciate how you how you see that, certainly.
And Fonzie, I intentionally used that term in naming the show and the whole movement because it was already such in popular culture. And I've seen real men do this, real men, all these different definitions. And so mine's just like, well, what if being real just meant that you could feel? That's all.
Yeah, that's really what it boils down to.
All right, so we've accepted Luke, but he's still trying to get in here somehow.
Still kind of stuck. Okay, well, allowing life, going with the flow.
We will allow the block to continue until it no longer serves.
Exactly. And Luke, if you want to participate just through the chat, that's fine too. We can read the chat out loud, or we can respond, or we can kind of continue that way. That's viable as well. Mm-hmm. All possibilities, all paths are doable. My mom used to say when I was growing up, if you can't go hunting with a dog, go hunting with a cat. So right now we're just going to pull out the cat. So, okay, here we go. So it looks like he has refreshed the browser. As we're waiting for him to come back on, why don't we go ahead and continue the discussion about being guided? I can tell you from my own personal experience, I followed a very similar path to Luke. I did things, I made decisions based off of what others wanted for me, and based off of the fears that were oftentimes communicated to me, and that I made my own. But then as I started to really pay attention to how I was feeling about my path, I made different choices. I stopped caring about what others wanted for me, and I started paying attention more to what I wanted for myself. Hence, where I am right now.
Yeah, and that's a big part of life and growth, and your own personal growth has to get you to that place where you realize what you think matters as much, if not more, than what other people think and their decisions. And
Yeah.
Allowing life to guide you, allowing you the twists and turns doesn't always mean you're going to like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's taking out the ups and the downs, and it's easier if you allow it, right?
That's exactly correct. And the more you fight it, the more miserable you feel. That's certainly been my experience. Every time I resist something, every time I'm like trying to change what it is that's happening, I just find myself encountering not only more resistance, but I get all worked up over it. It is, it just is, it ages me a lot. And it causes flare-ups of depression, of bipolar disorder, of anxiety, and everything else. So, okay, let's see if we can get Luc to come on in here.
And there's a line from, I think it's Byron Katie, every time I fight what is, I lose.
Exactly. So accept what is, and you end up winning.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see here. Okay, Luc. we can try having you just join through the chat. Keep on going through the chat. That's fine. Let's take a look at some of the questions that are coming in from the chat.
Being signs.
Mm-hmm.
The more I allow myself to see signs and let go of trying to determine if they are coincidences or not, the more I am guided. Yeah, and that's like a label I just decided to drop. Like, oh, what if it's just a coincidence? Well, what if a coincidence equals a sign? Like, what if coincidences can guide you to where you want to go? Like, who cares? When did coincidence become like a bad thing, and synchronicity or signs were better versions of it?
Right, and I've never been one who's been big on signs per se. I certainly look at. I use the word hints instead. Suggestions, guideposts. Those are the words that feel most comfortable for me, because for me, signs is too much about ancient. I don't know, just. There we go. There we have it. But basically, too much about superstition. Signs is, to me, I associate that more with superstition than actual guidance and being guided. So that's just.
But do you find it like calling something a coincidence? It makes it, you belittle it. Kind of. It seems like less. You can ignore it. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. I do feel like a coincidence is belittling it in many ways and trying to explain it away. So, welcome back, Luc.
Wow. Well, I thought I was alone for a while, so I didn't know what was going on, and then I decided to get out and come back.
That's fantastic. No, we're glad that you did.
Yeah. So you're talking about coincidence versus what?
Like, for instance, seeing signs along the path. Being guided by things. Because one of the things that was very fascinating in when you were talking about being guided by your feeling and how you felt and how you ended up where you are, because you were always paying attention to your feelings. Sarah, talking about seeing signs and trying to determine if it's a coincidence or not, and determining if she's actually being guided. So I tend to not like to use the word sign, only because I've always associated it with superstition versus just noticing something as a message instead.
Right. Mm-hmm. See, the way I think of it is the same way as the law of attraction, except that with the law of attraction, we're taught to tune in to something you really want, and then feel the feeling of it and feel the love you have for it. And if you stay stable with that, eventually it'll come in your life.
Right.
And what I'm talking about here is that it's whatever you're coming to life with in your soul. You have a purpose that's already there, that has an energy that attracts things to itself so that it can fulfill that purpose. It is the law of attraction, but applied to the soul, not to the mind and the heart. And that the power of the soul is more so than the power of the mind and the heart, because it's consistently there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unstable. The only instability is the connection we have with it. And that's the only way that I can explain how I became the psychotherapist that I want to be, is because my soul knew who I wanted to be. My mind didn't know. But life still brought me there.
Luc, is the essence of allowing life to guide you always filling soul's purpose?
I believe so. And I believe that our hurt and our lessons are connected with our purpose. So there's no separation. So whatever life brings you is a step toward your purpose.
Even if it hurts or you don't like it, it's still nudging you along.
Oh, especially if it hurts. Especially if it
life
hurts.
Doesn't, at least in my experience, it may not seem this in the moment, but at least in hindsight, I can see that anytime life has seemed to hurt me, it has been to get me moving in the right direction.
Exactly. And it's kind of hard to say to someone who's just been raped, right? You wouldn't say that, hey, wow, life is guiding you somewhere. You have to be sensitive about it when you have a client, right? But my clients who've been really terribly hurt finally see it by themselves with the right kind of questioning and trying to get away from the victimizing and more the empowerment that comes from integrating that experience.
So you broke up there a little bit on me. So what you're saying, moving from what to empowerment?
From victimization to empowerment.
That's what I assumed it was, but I didn't want to assume.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have a question here. Sounds like you're talking about a fate or birth promise. What if the template you're born with is a negative one? Doesn't like that idea. It's sort of like astrology. It makes life feel rigid. So how would you speak to that?
My own experience. I can't speak from other people's experiences, but I know from the work that I've done on myself and from hypnotherapy sessions that I came with definite wounds and I came with a definite purpose. For example, in my life, I recognized I had talents in mathematics that I couldn't explain. I could not explain it from my education. I was the math whiz in my family. I recognized when I started doing math that I was tapping into something that I was born with. I could not explain it in any other way. When I started doing Kundalini Yoga, it was the same feeling. It's like entering in a space that feels familiar. And I was born with that knowledge. Life just needed to give me experiences to remember what that knowledge was. Because I started to say things in the classroom that other people were not aware of. And there are other things in my life, like construction, like the work of craft, working with clay, that in me. Or playing music. I have a little bit of music in me, but not the talent of my son or Mozart or a Beethoven. There are things that are not a part of my makeup. And so you can call that fate if you want. I call that evolution. It's the evolution of your soul. If you don't believe in reincarnation, then you have to figure out how you would integrate that in your worldview. But I end up believing that I had an out-of-body experience, and that gave me an experience of a part of me that is eternal. And that led me to believe there's continual growth for this part of me. And my body and my mind are just a vehicle to help that.
So, it's fascinating that you should say that, because when I'm working with people or when I'm in a state where I'm actually channeling, oftentimes the feeling that I get in response to certain questions, especially that come up with regard to this whole issue of fate and being guided or whatever, is that we come into this world with a definite intention. But that does not negate two powerful elements, which are part of our experience, which is, first of all, the human experience, which is one of the reasons why we decided to come and take on a body, but to experience all of the various things and discoveries and adventures that come with having a human experience. But it also does not negate the fact that we can change our minds whenever we want, that we always have that free will, that we always can change direction or go in a different way, which might still be aligned with that purpose with which we come in, that passion for which we come in, but we can still change direction. We can still kind of go around.
I think it depends on each individual.
Sure, absolutely.
I know that if when I tried to get out of the path of statistics, life would always guide me back into it. I could not escape it I tried several times. I could not. Once it was time for me to switch away from that field never opened up again. There was a definite restriction to what I could and could not do in my life. On the other hand, somebody else might have a much more wide open field to what their experiences are going to be, because what they came here to learn and to give is very different from what I came here to give and to learn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I cannot make a generalized statement that life is going to be a certain way for for everybody, right? But for me, I can definitely tell that there were some things that I really experienced and some things that I needed to that I was protected from experiencing.
Does fate ever feel rigid to you? Having a path?
I don't think about it. I don't think about it as fate, because it's like, I don't believe in past, present, future. It's just a construct. So everything is happening at the same time. Fate implies that I don't know, so that there's a past, present, future.
What about the initial question of asking, what if you're born with a negative template? Do you find that, can someone just be born with some sort of darkness or negativity that is really part of their core? Sure.
Like a Hitler, for instance. I cannot talk from experience on that one. I know that the way I see it is like my soul has mud patches on it and presented in my body and my mind. So I have blind spots. I have certain things that I need to grow in. When I grow, these mud patches, one at a time, get dissolved and removed, and my soul can fully shine. My soul is whole, but there's cover it, and I can't see the full shyness of it. And I believe that's true for everyone. So maybe a Hitler comes with a soul that's completely covered. But I've read stories of other people who work with people who are demons on Earth. They do blood sacrifices and things like that. And these accounts say these people can actually be turned back into the light under certain circumstances. But this I just read about. I don't know from experience.
So, Appia, what about kind of people that you come across? Like, so I know from when I'm doing Akashic record readings, I've often had people show up believing that they are somehow just negative and wrong and even cursed or something, and I just never find that to be the case.
That's been my experience as well. Generally, whenever I come across somebody like that and they have this impression that they are just, everything is going wrong, I just carry this negative energy about me and everything else, my experience has been that generally they have bought into this illusion. They're paying attention more to the negative experiences than to the light, which is the essence of their soul. And they're being guided more by all the external factors and paying attention to all the external factors versus paying attention to what's coming from within. They've bought into this illusion that life happens versus you can create it by choosing, by paying attention and allowing it to guide you.
Yeah.
I agree with that, Appio. I heard somebody at a group that was talking about the law of attraction, and he said, I've tried to go into that vortex, and but as soon as I remember all the misery in the world, I cannot fully experience the gratitude and all of that. And the way I resolve that is that we have life lessons and we have something to give. And so when we forget what we have to give the world, it's easy to feel miserable about the state of the world.
I muted myself there for a second.
But we don't have to go there. We have a...
No, I was going to agree with you there, and I had muted myself. So.
Yeah. So what happens is that this world has a lot of things that we can improve, right? Famine, wars, what have you. And if we just look at that and forget that we have something to contribute, then we can easily be completely depressed about the whole state of affairs. But if we remember we have something to contribute, then it's no longer about feeling miserable about what's going on. It's about being consciously creative, like you suggested, with what we have. And then we can get out of anxiety and depression.
The world is full of experiences and varying ranges of good and bad or indifferent or whatever labels you want to give it. And it really, where do you as an individual want to put your focus, your attention, your energy into? Right? The good stuff you see or the bad stuff. And even people that look at the bad and don't think they're being negative, but if you look at quote unquote what's bad or you don't like and decide that that's how it's always going to be, that kind of gives that more strength. And you can fall into that place of like, oh, it's always famine and war and that's all we are. And we're just a messed up race and we don't belong here. And I say that from personal experience. I felt that way for a long time. So.
Been there too.
It's
totally. Part of the human experience, for sure.
Yeah. But even that can be a sense of being guided there.
Yes.
Like we can be guided into the depths of misery to decide that we are powerful enough to come out of it.
When I finished my degree in mental health counseling, no agency would give me a job, not even an interview. And that put me into the depth of the darkest space in my life that I can remember. The only way out was to realize, oh, I have to truly believe in myself and stop waiting for the rest of the world to believe in me. And that was an epiphany. I was able to get out of darkness at that point, and I realized that there was something very powerful about being alone and not being given an opportunity by anybody else.
Yeah, that's huge. One of the things that I consistently like to share with my clients and the people that I work with is that when you love you, when you are able to truly passionately love yourself, then the beauty of the world is truly reflected back to you. The world loves you in return.
Right.
And when we're always looking at that,
I totally agree with that.
It's the most incredible feeling. And I've spent most of my 47 and a half years, trying to figure that one out. And it took me 46 of those years to figure it out.
Yeah. My yoga teacher, Yogi Bhajan, used to say, be you and everything will come to you.
That is so good.
The difficulty for me was I thought I was being me and nothing was coming. So being you means, releasing all of the negativity you have about you and just being pure.
Oh, yeah.
Being as pure as you can. Yeah. And believing in that. But that took me a while to learn.
Yeah. It's a lot of trial and error to figure out who and what you are. Right.
Yeah. So one question that came up was if you could tell us a little bit more about the work that you're actually doing now, how the psychotherapy fits in with the yoga, and how the activity of it, the tasks and the methods and so forth that you use. Do you keep them separate? Do you integrate them together? How does that all work?
Yes. So because of my life's experiences, something that wants to live, that wants to be expressed. And so in my therapy, I believe that my clients have that in them as well, that there's something in them that wants to express itself in the world. It could be a dance, it could be, scientific experiment, whatever it is, I cannot tell. And if they're confused about who they are, they don't know either. And usually when they have a mental distress, be it anxiety, be it depression, bipolar, these are expression of distress, of being stressed out because they're not in touch with their soul. I think Sarah said something like that. And so my job is to help them reconnect with that light in them, who they really are. I call myself a midwife of the inner world.
I like that.
I give birth to their spirit. And I don't try to fix them. I don't try to diagnose them. If anything, if they already have a diagnosis, I use it as a symptom of a disconnection. And so I help them reconnect. And then the disease goes away. It can be diabetes even. You don't have to think of it as a mental illness. Any physical ailment is a symptom of a disconnection. And so when we reconnect with our true power, with our true light, these things disappear slowly or sometimes instantaneously. It's amazing. So my work is a work of helping people with self-inquiry, with reconnecting with their body, feeling the source of the stress in their body instead of thinking of it in their minds, and then allowing their body to speak to them.
So some of the signs
There's a very
that Sarah was talking about earlier that are signs to follow, and or coincidence, whatever we want to call it, can be our own body. All the messages are there already.
The messages are there, and I trust that my clients have the answers, so I don't have to give them any answers. I just have to guide them to their answers. Right. So, for example, I was called by a guy called Richard Schwartz. He's a psychotherapist, and he had a client who had a problem with food. She was anorexic, and at some point he said to her, "Why don't you talk to your anorexia?" And she was very reluctant to doing that because she was so scared of it. She thought the anorexia was against her, like a devil, a demon inside that was stealing her energy. And he had to try to help her see that maybe it's not a demon, maybe it's a part of her that she doesn't know enough to have an impact on letting it go. So she decided finally to accept, to use her and to talk to it. And she realized it was trying to protect her from something. Once she was aware of what it is that it was trying to protect her from, then she was able to use that own protection herself, and she no longer needed to be anorexic. She did it in a positive way instead of in a negative way. And I don't remember what it is that the anorexia was trying to protect her from. But to me, it was a very clear example that the body has a kind of a wisdom that we can tap into. And I used that same thing with my...
That's fascinating. You should use that example because I have a friend who went through the opposite extreme. She actually was morbidly obese. That was the diagnosis that the doctor had given her, was morbidly obese. She did the exact same thing. Right. She ended up speaking to the obesity. She realized that it was protecting her from something. And the way that she was able to overcome that was by speaking to it and saying, listen, you no longer need to protect me. I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm whole, I am perfect. You can go away now. I no longer need your protection. And it is amazing. She is one of the most she's one of the most fit people I've ever met. And just amazing. Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And that works for a lot of things. I had a friend who was going through a terrible divorce, and she had initiated it, she wanted it, but after having done all those steps, she started to feel nostalgic. And she says, Luc, I don't understand. I have this sadness, this deep sadness for my marriage, and I know I don't want it. What's going on? And so I could have given her some ideas, but instead of remaining at the level of the mind, I said, well, where do you feel that nostalgia in your body? And she said, it's in my chest. And I said, okay, so forget your husband, forget the interpretation that you have in your head about what it is. Just stay with the sensations of it and just welcome them, feel them. And then she was silent for a while. And when she started talking, she says, there's a party inside of me. It was not sadness. It was exhilaration. It was a party. So I can explain it afterwards that she was so scared of her future that she preferred to think about what she was losing, what she was missing, than what was coming into her life. But her body told her, I didn't have to tell her, which is much more powerful.
How many of the people that you work with are men? Have you found that, like me and Andy, and when we first started working, the vast majority of our clients were women, and gradually started becoming more and more men? Or what's the proportion of men that you work with who are looking for this type of healing?
Oh wow, I have both, men and women. And in the beginning, though, it was mainly women. But then women started to say to their men, you got to talk to Luc.
That's usually how it works. Yeah.
I don't know, but I have the feeling that there's more reluctance from men to go seek the help of a psychotherapist than for women. But that's just an impression. I'm not sure. I didn't do the stats on that.
I think we have, a lot of not evidence, but certainly anecdotal suggestions that put the same direction. Yeah, men are very resistant, and they need some prodding.
And it's the same thing in yoga classes. More women are taking yoga classes than men, and it's a shame. I think men would benefit from it. I think that the fear on the part of men is that either they're not fit to do it, or that they don't have the time because they're spending all their time doing their career. But my experience with yoga and with meditation is that it frees you enough that you can be more effective in your life if you actually practice yoga every day than if you don't. And so you benefit in time and in energy. And so it's a cop-out to say that they don't.
I could go for that. I could definitely go for that. And it looks like we have a bad connection again.
Yeah. All right.
Sarah, thanks so much for that comment. We like to think that it's a great place for all the men that are brave enough to step forward, for sure.
Yeah.
And on that note, let's give a little plug for if you're looking for more spaces of greatness, you can visit realmenfeel.org and also check out our private Facebook group, Real Men Feel. If you just search for Real Men Feel on Facebook, you'll find our group, and you just if you're not in it, just ask to join, and we shall let you in. But that's a place where we kind of have more private discussions than the public ones we have here. But a lot of guests come from within the group. A lot of guests then join the group. But it's pretty vibrant at times. But we've been going for about 40 minutes now, so maybe time to wrap it up. So I really want to thank everyone that's joined us, all the questions and chat room activity, and of course, Luc. Thanks for joining us. And despite the iffy audio signal, I trust that everyone got good value from this. And yes, Fonzie says, good show. Thanks. Excellent. So thanks for joining us, Fonzie. I haven't seen your name before. Yeah.
And Luc, is there a way that anybody who's interested in your work can get in touch with you?
Yes, my site is inner, I'll type it, worth.com. And worth is with E-R.
That's a great term.
I love that.
Very cool. Yes.
Yeah. And there's www in front of it, of course. But so thank you so much for the show, guys.
Our pleasure. Thanks for joining us. And we'll be back live next Tuesday with attorney, speaker, and founder of Project Positive Change, which is something that Appio and I are both involved in. Lee Daniel will be joining us. That's next Tuesday live. Until then, thanks for being here, Appio.
Absolutely. Thank you.
For being here, Luc, and everybody else. And we'll talk to everyone soon. Have a great week.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.